Amen. Let's go into the garden together. Let's go on a frolic in the garden, my dear friends. Vayomer Aleichem. And God said, Nase Adam b'tsalmeinu k'dmuseinu. Let us make man in our image. Nase Adam. God obviously doesn't need to partner with anybody or anything in order to create. Look at Rashi. Hashem wanted to, so to speak. So he consulted with the angels to show that a great person, to teach us a lesson down here, a great person, when they want to do something major, they consult with people that might be under them to show that, yes, I might be great, but I have a certain humbleness to consult. So Hashem said, let us. The Ben Ish Chai says an interesting thing. He says that was speaking about Hashem and the Moel. A Moel, when he comes and he does the completion of the Brit Milah, that is Nasa Adam, that through God creates the beginning and the Moel finishes, then perfects the man. Bris Kodesh. Turnus Rufus famously asked Rabbi Akiva, as Turnus Rufus said, why do you Jews do bris milah? Didn't God make a perfect world? Why do you do such things? So Rabbi Akiva answered back, he said, why don't you come? I have an idea, we'll have some dinner, and you know what we're going to serve? I'm going to take some stalks of wheat. I'm going to put them on your plate. Eat up. Sounds good? Sounds delicious? No, it doesn't sound so good. I want those fresh baked challahs that are in the oven. Those are much better. According to you, shouldn't it be that the hand of God is much better than the handiwork of man? He said, now I see. So to bris milah, that yes, Hashem gives us the raw materials, but we, so to speak, perfect ourselves. Nasa Adam. And the bris milah of Shovim is not just a one-time thing. It's not just while I was 8 days old that I was zoicha to have a bris, but it's the shmiras bris for the rest of your life, of guarding the bris. And that's the nasa adam, that you perfect yourself through the bris. V'yirdu b'degas hayam. And yes, the human, the man will have the power, will control the whole world. But beware, you both have the power over this world to either build up the world as a place of Hashem, or God forbid, to destroy it. And that's why Adam was told, he was given the directive in Gan Eden, he was given the directive, l'shamra u'la'avda. La'avda u'l'shamra, to work the garden and to protect the garden. To work the garden, meaning this whole garden is for you. This whole world is for you and I, my friends. But don't abuse it. Don't abuse it. The Rambam says one of the proofs that the world was created for the humans is that the humans have a special intelligence. And that the humans are the purpose and the pinnacle of creation. Is you see from the power of the humans that, are we the strongest? No. Animals are stronger than us, more ferocious than us, faster than us, larger than us. Think how big a whale is. You don't want to have one of those sit on anybody. Huge. I went to a museum one time and they had a blue whale, like the size of a blue whale. It was in the museum, I think it was somewhere in New York. They're huge. You ever seen the teeth of a shark? It's crazy. Shark teeth, there's like layers of them. You know how fast a cheetah is? That was like my perm thing. I was always the fast cheetah. I dressed up as a cheetah. It's 30 days before perm, so it's, we're already perm dick. Fast cheetah. But you know what? Says the Rambam, we put whales into aquariums and we could put lions into cages. Why? Because we have the power of the seichel, we have our mind, which shows that we have the power, there's a certain domination, but we're not allowed to abuse that power. We have to build up this world as a place for Hashem, and not to abuse it, not be power hungry and abuse that power. Ba'oif hashamayim behem b'chol ha'aretz b'chol haremes haroimes ala ha'aretz. V'yivra Elokim es ha'adam b'tsalmai, and God made man in His image. B'tselem Elokim bara oisai. He made man, singular. Zachar and the keva bara oisam. A man and a woman He made them. Did He make them one, or did He make them man and women? So the Gemara accepts the view of the Zohar that Adam and Eve were Siamese twins. They were two connected as one, two beings completely unified together. Now, what's the benefit of that?
No machlokes.
Depends who you ask, you know. You know who your wife is. You never lose her. She's right there. There's no option of anybody going anywhere else. There's no option of anybody being disloyal and unfaithful because they're attached. What's the downside?
There's no option of going anywhere else.
There's no option of going anywhere else, which means that there was never an option of choosing each other. And therefore the unification is somewhat, I never chose this. I was forced into this. Which is one of the natural elements of why a child and a parent, there's always like a type, a bit of a beef there, like sort of, I was put into this. I didn't choose this per se, even though we do have sources that there is some level of choice and you knew what you were getting yourself into. But from the perspective of the child, there's a feeling of, I didn't choose this. And even though the child is the fruit of the tree, and the child should just be an extension, like we spoke about last night, that eitz apri, that tam apri is ketama eitz, that the taste of the trees, the wood of the tree should taste like the fruit, which means that it should be one fluid continuation between the tree and the fruit. But when Adam took the fruit and he ripped it away from the tree, what he was essentially doing was saying that I'm separate from the tree that I came from. I'm not connected to the one that I came from. That's why there's like this natural rebellion thing, like with kids, Not like I went through that or anything like that, you know what I'm saying? But like everybody else. And like really being, a bit hardcore about it. And that's all the result of what happened to Adam and Eve by ripping that tree, ripping the fruit away from the tree, of trying to make a separation between the two. And the whole tikkun of Tu B'Shvat is to return the fruit to the tree, to know where you come from. But now what you're doing is after Adam ate, after Adam and Eve were, so to speak, cut apart, it's all the same inyan, called the Nesira, the slicing apart. So now there becomes a rebellion that you can go and do all sorts of funny things in this world. But now you have the option to choose to come back. That's Shovim, that's Tshuva, that's Eish HaTorah. I could choose to return the fruit to the tree. That's what we were doing all last night, just eating, 101 different fruits, to return the fruit. To say, I want to come back. I want to be attached to the Elon from where I came from. The great Elon. The great tree, the supernal tree. And so too, I want to attach myself back with you, Hashem, because up in Shemaim, I was also one with you. Our souls come from underneath the throne of glory. Which means in that place, what's the benefit of being one with God? You're one with God. What's the downside?
You're one with God.
You didn't choose it. And therefore there's some element, if you didn't choose it, it's called Namet Kisufin. It's like a bit shameful, bread of shame. I didn't earn this, I never chose this. So Hashem says, I want, and I made this whole creation for your benefit, so I'm going to do something. I'm going to rip you away from underneath my throne of glory. I'm I'm going to throw you down into this crazy world called Olam Hazeh. Here we are, Chevra.
This is the one.
And here we are, but this is it, And we get this feeling like I'm this fruit it has no shaykhs to the tree, You don't know me, God. Dad, you don't get me. I'm the fruit, I'm where it's at. I'm ripped away from where I came from. Now, there was a funny encounter. I don't know if it's funny or it makes you want to cry. You'll tell me which one you think. The great, great sage and tzaddik Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, Zatzal. So there was a Maisa. There was a story that happened that he was in a certain place and his children were acting very nice to him. They're acting very, very nicely to him. And somebody who also was in that place had kids that were there, and the kids were not exactly acting so nice. They were giving one of those, like, you don't get me, Ma, you don't know me. And Rabbi Yaakov's kids were acting so nice to him. So at one point, the father comes over to Rabbi Yaakov and says, Rabbi, I can't help but notice that your kids are so respectful to you. Can you please explain to me why that is? Now, my kids treat me like garbage, but your kids are very, very nice to you. So he says, I can explain it very simply. He said, our family, we know that Hashem is the creator, and Hashem gave us the Torah. And because Hashem gave us the Torah, He gave us this relationship with Him and this amazing experience of national revelation at Har Sinai. And because He gave us that experience, my son knows that I'm one step closer to that experience, that we're connecting ourselves back to the trunk, back to the tree, and I'm one step closer to that very, very powerful experience. And therefore my son will do everything possible to be connected to me as much as possible. But you believe that we came from a bunch of apes, and therefore your son sees you as one step closer to the monkeys, and that he's somehow, the further he could run away from you, so he's the future. And therefore he wants to cut any ties that he can from you and not see where he comes from. He's ripping that fruit away from the tree. And the secret of the Eitz Hadas Tov V'Ra is that really that was the tree that, so to speak, rebelled. That was the tree that the fruit was ripped away, and no longer does the fruit feel like it's connected to the tree. But the esrog is coming to teach us the secret that the taste of the esrog and the taste of the bark of the tree is one thing. And that's what's happening here with Adam and Chava, is the need to rip them apart in order that they can choose each other once again. Tu B'Shvat is the day you fix all this stuff. The whole ripping apart was also through eating, of not eating in a way of holiness, having a relationship to something, but it's so disconnected. Like, I just stuff this stuff down my throat and forget the relationship involved. So Hashem goes on. This is good stuff. Just open up Bereshis. Bereshis is where the action is. And Hashem puts a garden. V'yipach ba'ap of nishmas chayim, and He breathes life into man. And look what it says. V'yikach Hashem Elokim es ha'adam v'yanicheh began Eden. La'avda l'shamra. You're in Gan Eden, but you have to work it. You have to guard this land. Don't abuse this world. You're not allowed to abuse it. I remember when I was in college, I was spending time with different native communities. Some of the Canadian Inuit and Ojibwe peoples, different local tribes. And I remember they said something very powerful to me. I was in college and I heard something, and I later realized the Gemara says that nikarim divrei emet, that words of truth ring with authenticity. So I remembered the following. I remember they said, we were talking about forestry. Basically, you go in and you cut down an entire mountain of trees. Now, has anybody ever seen what a deforested forest looks like? It's a pretty intense sight. Like you're going and it's beautiful and it's trees and there's mountains.
And empty.
And then literally you like go across a little corner and it looks like somebody ripped a bandage off, or like if they had hot wax on some hair, it's like ripped it off, and it was just like a X just off the mountain. You're like, wow, that's like mega. That's a mega footprint of something. Oh, there's like one tree in the middle of like a mountain. It's like a landmark of when they replant the trees that were missing. And I remember them telling me that, we also need trees, right? We build furniture, we build homes, we build canoes, we build many things with trees. We use it for fuel, firewood. They said we go into the forest and we do something called selective cutting. We go into the forest and we see when there's two trees that are growing so close together that they're both going to choke each other out, and most likely they'll both die, that we go and we realize that the Creator put a situation here where you could take one of those trees, save the other tree, and it's a gift. Take this tree, use this tree. So I remember this line that they said to me. They said, when the Westerner, or whatever you'll call him, goes into the forest, he cuts down all the trees because he's only thinking about himself and maybe his kids. Maybe. One generation. How can I make as much money as possible? I'm not so concerned that there's not going to be any trees anymore because I got to make bank on this deal. So they think about one generation. When we go into the forest to cut the trees, we think about one generation, but we also think about 1,000 generations.
How do we think 1,000 generations?
Because they want to make the forest, and when we cut the trees, the forest is even more beautiful. We make the forest more rich and more luscious. They think about 1,000 generations. We selectively cut the trees, that there could be a forest 1,000 generations from now. The Gemara tells a story about a person who was eating carob. Carob, you heard of carob? Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai ate carob in the cave for 12 years. And this person was planting a carob tree. Now the Gemara says, you know how long it takes a carob tree to sprout and grow and bear fruit? 70 years. 70 years. 70 years. So the person said, you're planting a carob tree. You're never going to eat the fruits. You're going to be gone from the world before the fruits are going to become ripe. Why are you planting this thing? You're never going to eat these fruits. So he looked at the man, he said, do you eat carob? Of course I eat carob. I love carob, it's delicious. I also eat carob. You know why I'm eating this carob? Because my father before me planted a carob tree. And therefore there's carob for me to eat. And I'm planting this tree that my children should have carob. And they're going to plant so their children should have carob. You're right, I'm not planting it for me. But I'm only eating carob because somebody came before me and thought about it. Thought about that I should have carob. The whole way, l'shamra or la'avda, Hashem said, I put you in a world, you have to protect this world, you have to build this world. You're allowed to cut trees. You're allowed to drive cars. But you have to do it in a way that you're thinking about the continuity. You're thinking about building Hashem a world here. And you're remembering, where did I come from? Tu B'Shvat is the day we start returning the fruits back to their trees. We start returning and realizing where I come from. And we do tshuva, that I want to come back. And the supernal fruit, which is you and I, we return to the great tree. We return to the place that we came from. But now we get to do it from a place of love, that we're choosing to come home. So Rabbi say, daven now, Tu B'Shvat, daven. Daven, that all those that have gone far, far away, because the fruit falls off from the tree, it can start to rot. But if you return the fruit to its tree, it has life, it's connected to the source, it's filled with life. And Hashem is always vibrant. Return yourself to the tree. It's the new year of the trees. The sap is rising right now. to feel yourself, to feel the powers of this day. We should be Zoicha Mamish L'Shamra La'avda, to guard and to work this great garden that Hashem gave us, to work it for you, Hashem, to build you a malchus, to build you Mesava Kodesh Baruch Hu, Liers Labedir B'Sach Toinim. Hashem, you want to have a dwelling place down here in Alma Adain, in this world, in the Olam of Asiyah Sheba Asiyah. All you want, Hashem, is that your presence should shine in this world. We should go forth and tell the whole world about you, Hashem. We need to give Hashem some very, very good PR right now. Hashem could do it himself, but he wants us to have the opportunity that we should do it, that we could be partners, that we could return the fruits to the trees. That's the gift that he's giving us. So we're going to double our efforts and redouble our efforts to show the whole world that Maloich al kol ha'olam, kuloi bichvaydecha, that Hashem melech, Hashem malach, Hashem yimloich, li'olam v'ad. We should be zaying to this, to Mashiach Tzidkein b'mher v'emin. Amen. A good Yom Tov, Rabbi Yisrael, Freilich and Tu B'Shvat, Kol Tov.
So my grandfather